stuff in this. Okay, no problem. Okay, this is Tanya, Taffy, and this is our latest edition, Callie. Hey, Callie. Say hi, Callie. Say hi. And as you say, this is our backyard with a little stream like what they call River Rock.
I was born, I remember, August 28, 1935, in a hospital in Melrose, Massachusetts. I remember I lived in Winthrop, Massachusetts. There were 11 people in the house. There was my mother, my brothers Peter, John, and Bill, my Aunt May, my Aunt Kitty, Nellie, my Aunt Kate. They were actually my grandaunts, my grandmother, and my grandfather. There were 11 of us. And there was only one bathroom, so it was quite an interesting situation at that time. I remember I lived in a very small room with my brother Bill, and we only had one bed. And every time I had to get out of the bed, I had to somehow or other crawl over Bill to get out of the bed. So it was quite an interesting situation. He was a lot older than I was, and so a lot of times I had the room to myself, which was great. Probably the funniest thing that ever happened there, that he came home late one night, and my grandfather always shut the door. He said, nothing good happens after midnight. So if you didn't get home before midnight, you didn't get in the house. Well, Bill was late that night, so there was a drain pipe on the side of the house, and he climbed up the drain pipe, and he got halfway up, and he fell off onto the ground. It made a big noise, and everybody woke up, and the whole neighborhood looked around, and my grandfather, you damn fool, and he's out there yelling at my brother. So I do remember that. The kids in the neighborhood, we were good kids. We never got in any trouble as such as, Halloween, you might throw over a trash can or something. We didn't do any damage at all. It was always good fun. One thing, we always had names. We had a kid around the corner. His name was Nathaniel. We used to call him Nutty Nate. This was part of growing up. My brother Peter, he used to wear a ball cap sideways. His name was Pete the Geek. It didn't bother him. I would call Slobby Bobby for a while, because once in a while I would drool. In fact, we didn't have a nickname, there was something wrong with us. But we got along good. My mother used to seem to send me away every summer. She worked as for the Veterans Administration, where my father had been a veteran. She was like a receptionist in the psychiatric area. Well, she became friendly with this Dr. Howard. And this Dr. Howard knew the owner of this caddy camp down in Nantucket. I was able to get in there when I was 11 years old. They usually didn't take children that young, because you had to carry two golf bags. They get pretty heavy. 8 years down there, I loved to be there. I ended up as a caddy master my last year there. And that was probably some of the best years of my life. We ran it like the Navy. When I was an officer, one of my jobs was, in the morning, we had revelry. I had to go out and put the flag up as they played the song they played. And I was raised the flag up. Everybody's standing at attention. And I raised the flag upside down. Everybody said, well, I'm raising the flag. I didn't know, I was half asleep. There were very famous people who used to be members there. And probably the most famous golfer I caddied for was a guy named Dick Chapman. He was a French amateur champ, a U.S. amateur champ.
Dick Chapman, who has reached the final for the third time in 4 years. Halving 6 of the first 7 holes, Chapman is 1 up as they approach the 8th. If he misses his putt, Coe can win the hole to make it all square. Chapman putts.
So we were playing the 13th hole, par 4, second shot. He asked me what club to use, so I figured what I would use. And then I backtrack a club and said, well, Mr. Chapman, I think you ought to use this club. So he hit it, and he hit the green, and he was probably maybe 25 feet below the hole. And he yelled at me, oh boy. I vaguely recall some of his words like, a golfer of my stature expects when he asks what club to use, that his caddy will tell him he wants to be hole high every time. So he wasn't hole high, so he was upset with me. Well, anyways, so what could I say? I took it and just couldn't say anything. Next hole on another, next day during the tournament, on a par 5 hole going downhill, second shot, big gallon, he turns everybody He used a one iron. He says, "This is how my friend Sam Snead told me how to hit a one iron." Sam Snead was a famous golfer. So he took the one iron and he just hit the top of the hill and just nudged a little bit down the hill. I almost laughed right in his face. I said, "That serves you right. Big shot you are." Anyways, weekends we used to have passes to go into town. We have a caddy song. I remember after here, like 70 years. I still remember the song. "A word of the boys from Sankaty," because Sankaty was a club. "A word of the boys from Sankaty, you've heard so much about. Wherever you go, you always know that we will get thrown out. We carry knives and pistols like all the caddies do. A word of the boys from Sankaty, who the blank are you?" So we used to go in town singing that song. And then most of the kids would take off to chase girls, whatever they were after. There was a blind accordionist that had a seat on Main Street underneath the big elm tree. On Saturday nights, he used to sit on that bench and he used to sing songs, and all the people would gather around him. And that's where I used to go every Saturday night. I used to love there and go sing songs, the old songs. Nantucket is a place where a lot of famous people come to hide during the summer, so we don't know who they are. And I remember one night, out of the crowd came Mary Martin. Mary Martin was a famous Broadway singer who did the show South Pacific. And she came out and led the music. I'll never forget that. I said, "Wow, that's Mary Martin," you know. So you never knew who was going to be there. But that's what I did. I didn't chase girls, I chased music. I first met my wife, Betty. I knew her from grade school, from grammar school. Back those days, the teachers used to sit you in alphabetical order. And Betty was always the last row, way over against the window, because her name was Scrunchy, the S's. So I knew her from that perspective, but outside of that, I didn't really know her. Never saw her after that. After the 8th grade, I went to the Jesuit high school. Obviously, I went to college. This was during the summer. Betty had gone on a trip. Her uncle, the Monsignor, had taken her to Italy for a trip, because he went to Italy every year. But Betty was about 18 or 19 at that time. They went over by boat, called SS Saturnia, and they flew home. The night that boat sailed out of Boston Harbor, it was nighttime, and we were down Point Shore, which is a beach we used to go to when we were growing up. And there's a place called the Wall. It's just a long seawall. So we used to go down and we used to drink our beer and so forth. So that night, I was down there with my best friend, Smitty, and her boyfriend. His name was Bob Donahue. He toasted Betty as she went on. And once again, we toasted his girlfriend as she went by. She came home, maybe about a month later. Oh, it's a cute story she told me. She met some sailors. She's only a young girl, 18, 19 years old. So I guess one night they had partied all night long. So she's going back to her stateroom like 5:30 in the morning. Her Uncle Tom's walking down the corridor and, "Oh, you're up early?" Yeah. She said, "Yeah, I got up early today, Uncle Tom." She was just coming home. He didn't realize that. But she had a good time, I guess. Well, anyways, so this is still the summer. So Friday night, we'd always meet at the local drugstore, and then we'd plan our night. We'd go drinking down at the Wall. We're going to go bowling, go get a pizza. We didn't know what we were going to do. Go down to Revere Beach, which is like Coney Island. It's like an amusement park. Here I am, about 7:30, I'm sitting there at the corner stool. Betty comes in up to the corner, right next to where I was sitting. There's, display case with all sorts of candy and stuff. She ordered some, some breath mints, I think. She said, "Hi, how are you?" And I had seen her for a year. "Hi, how you doing?" And just for conversation, I said, "Boy, your boyfriend and I toasted you when you were on your ship going to," "Oh yeah," she didn't say anything. She said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm just, I wait for some guys that probably go bowling. We'd take a bus down to the bowling alley. So I'll give you a ride." Oh, I was thankful. Nobody showed up but me. There was nobody there. So she drove me down to bowling. I thanked her. She drove off. I bowled and then I walked home. Saturday night, same time, we're down there, about 7:30, same seat. Every Saturday night, my grandmother made me sit at the dining room table. And she looked at me and said, "Would you have some beans, Bobby?" I said, "No, Nana, no thank you." And I would get up and I would walk out and I'd get down to the corner drugstore and have vanilla Coke and 2 hot dogs. Lo and behold, about 7:30, Betty comes in again. Hi, how you doing? Boy, this is 2 nights in a row, ha ha. She said it. Would you like to go for a ride? I said, I was doing nothing else. But yeah, sure. And that's how it started. So I guess that's how we met at JC's drugstore. Betty invited me to a Sunday dinner at her home, where I really got to meet the mother and father, really formally for the real first long time. And I don't know if you've ever been to an Italian dinner, but it is a sight to behold. And I didn't know anything about it. You sit down and you have antipasto. It's like a salad. It has some different types of meat in it. So you eat the salad, fine. Then they bring out spaghetti with meatballs and bread. I didn't know. I had a piece of bread with my spaghetti meatball. And I found out Italians never eat bread with their spaghetti. That's too much starch, I guess, I don't know. So I didn't do the right thing there. Anyways. So I ate like a lot. I didn't realize that was only one of the entrees. Then they bring out turkey, potatoes, carrots, a meal. So then you go through that. Then they bring out fruit. And then you go through that. And then they bring out the dessert, the cannolis, jeepers. By that time, you feel like you weigh 400 pounds. That's a traditional Italian dinner. And they do it I didn't go every Sunday, thank God. I'd weigh 400 pounds by a year. But they do that all the time. It was something else. My father-in-law, I never could really relate to him too much. I always called him sir. I could never call him dad. I just couldn't do it. Because I never had a father. I didn't know how to relate to a person as my father. He was a hard man to figure out. He was very old school Italian. But he was a good man and very faithful to his wife. Her mother-in-law, I loved her mother. Matter of fact, we would go dancing. I would dance more with her mother than I would with Betty. So she and I got along fine. I loved that woman. And I would tell people, say, "You love your mother-in-law?" I said, "Yeah, I love my mother-in-law." So she lived with us, 23 years in Beverly, plus in Arizona, but full of life. She's just an inside and outside a beautiful person. I don't think I really ever got down on a bend knee and asked her to marry me. I think it was just a foregone conclusion that we were going to get married. But I know we did get engaged. And the funny part about, for a whole year, I don't know, maybe this is an Italian tradition or not, I don't know. But during that year, I was taken to every one of her relatives, cousins, first cousins, uncles, aunts, as if they had to give their approval to me. Remember, I'm marrying a full-blooded Italian, and I'm Irish-Scotch. It's almost unheard of. But apparently I must have passed muster because I was given the great honor of marrying my wife. We had a bachelor party, and Smitty had the car, my best friend. And Smitty drove, and Betty's father was sitting in the back seat. Smitty had a beat-up car, and his radiator always overheated, so he had a bucket of water in the back seat. Went over a bump, and Mr. Scratch just flowing in the bucket of water. It's flowing in the bucket of water. Funny, oh jeez, that was funny. We got married in April 4th. It was a spring day, but it was kind of an overcast day. Smitty and I are waiting at the church, and Betty's uncle's there. Everybody's there. Betty's father, I don't know, the tie that you wear, the tie broke or something. And so we had to fix the tie. And so they were late getting Betty, and her father was late getting there. So everybody said, "You're going to be stood up at the altar by Betty." I said, no, something must have happened. Well, anyways, they came there, and we got married. And we had a wedding reception at a nightclub. So we went back to the house after the wedding at her home, and we had another reception there. And then we left and we went to New York for a week. We stayed at the Queen Hotel, I think. It's on Broadway. So that was our honeymoon. Thinking about Betty, there's so many attributes that I could give her. She was a tremendous businesswoman. She had her own travel business. She was the executive secretary for the Teachers Association for over 20 years. She was the warden at the polls. At one point, she was on the Democratic City Committee, and she was the secretary to the inventor of Elmer's glue, Miss Edward Stoll. She did a lot of things, but if I had to come down with the one attribute that I could always remember her for was her kindness. I've never met a person kinder than Betty. Never. She went out of her way to be kind. That's the most important one. Probably why my daughter Linda is special to me is if you grew up with three brothers playing with boys, you didn't know what girls were at all until you really met your wife. That I remember when my wife was pregnant, the guy said, "Oh, you're waiting for a son?" I said, "No. I want a daughter. I want a girl." "What are you, nuts? Men want boys." I said, "No, I want a daughter. I want a girl." So I wasn't in the hospital. I had been in the hospital. Betty got sick. She got dehydrated a week before she had the baby. So she was in the hospital for a couple of days. Then they went home. Then she went back and they had the baby. So I was going back and forth, back and forth. So at this point in time, I was home. And the phone call came, and my mother-in-law answered the phone. Whenever my mother-in-law got on the phone, you could be talking to the President of the United States, or to the Pope, or to Jesus Christ himself, and you would never know. She would never let on who she was talking to. All it was, yes. And I was like, fine. And I'm standing there, "Nana, what was it? What was it?" She's talking and she keeps talking and talking. "Nana, was it a boy or a girl?" And she kept going on like I wasn't even there. And oh, Jesus. So finally she said, "You had a girl." Finally, after about 10 minutes. So I was overjoyed. So much so that I remember we lived, as I say, in the first floor apartment on Side Street in Winthrop. And I took the bus, I was in the bank then, I guess. I took the bus to work. I come home at night. And at lunchtime, I would go out every lunchtime and try to find her something. A little toy, anything, 10-cent toy, whatever it was. I used to roam the streets of Boston looking for little things. I can remember there was a couch in the living room. And my wife used to tell me, she knew, for some reason, she knew when I was coming home. She would get up on that couch and she's jumping up and down, down. "Here come Daddy, here come Daddy." And so I remember that about her. Another thing I remember, we had a dining room, we had what they call a hi-fi set. And there was a song, "The March of the Wooden Soldiers" or something, you know, where it gets bigger and bigger. And I would put Linda on my shoulders and I would be like a horse, and we'd go around the dining table, "Giddy up, Daddy, giddy up, giddy up." And she'd slap my foot, "Giddy up, giddy up." And the song would keep playing, "The March of the Wooden Soldiers." And it was, those I remember her. Sometimes I wish she stayed as a little girl, but obviously you grow up. She's become a wonderful, beautiful woman. She's got 2 great children. Another love I installed in her is a love of animals. In fact, I did that with my son too. And I'm so happy that they do love animals, especially dogs. And I think she loves people. She's been very successful, and I wish her well. Scott, he always seemed older to me than the rest of his friends. Even growing up, I remember him as far as physical, that Scott seemed to grow bigger than his best friend Joe. Joe's a big boy now if you saw a big guy. But when he was growing up, Scott, I think, was twice as tall as Joe, and all of a sudden, they call it the adolescent spurt. Joe shot up and Scott stopped. I used to play a lot of ping pong. I never had a backhand. That was my weakness. I had a good grade for him. I never had a backhand. I used to play my son a lot. I told him the first time he beat me, I'd give him $5. And he beat me honest to square, he beat me. He threw that paddle down, and he ran out to the garage, up the stairs. "I beat the son of a bitch," he ran up the stairs. I'll never forget that. But I know he didn't like me at that time. But I'm trying to make a man out of it. So finally, when he finally beat me, he really had grown up. And I think if he can do that and swallow that, he'll be all right in life. He'll do okay. And you've done fine. So that was, maybe I didn't do it the right way, but it turned out the right way. One of his biggest traits is loyalty. Loyalty to his friends, loyalty to his family. And another trait, I think he got that from me, is he loves animals as much as I do. And unfortunately, some of the long-haired dogs, he can't breathe it too well. So I know that's been a disappointment to him that he can't have that type of an animal. But anyways, very intelligent, very smart, did very well in school. I know when we moved out west, he moved out there too and got a couple jobs out there and bought a house very close to ours. So he's always been very close to us. He's been close to his mother, and I know he misses her probably as much as I do. He has 4 lovely children. He has done very well, and I knew he would. And I'm so happy that I did have a son, and I gave him the name that I wanted. So it tells you how much I think of him. I was going to be the Scot, but he became the Scot that I was going to be. I'm very happy that I have him as my son. I started teaching at the Christopher Columbus Catholic High School in the North End with the Franciscans. I got more respect than the priest, and that really bothered me. The priest didn't want to be there. They wanted to go on the mission. They were missionaries. Scott, my son, was on the way of being born. In September, they promised me a raise. And so comes December, I told Father Common, was the principal, I said, I really could use this money. He said, well, what can I say, Bob? I said, oh, Father, you just got my 2 weeks' notice. And I walked out of there. And I said to myself, what did I do? How am I going to go home? It's Christmas time. How am I going to go home and tell my wife that I just quit my job at Christmas time? I don't have a job. So I had applied for Beverly a couple of years before that, but I didn't have a master's degree, and I was working for it at that time. And there was an opening in Beverly. Hey, there's an opening in Beverly in January. My God. So I applied, and I got it. And I told the superintendent that I was on my master's. I would have it that May, and that I would really like to come. They gave me 4 classes. My favorite subject to teach was Algebra 2. I loved that subject. My least favorite subject to teach was geometry, because I figured all the kids were doing was memorize the theorems, like I did, memorize the theorems. And I enjoyed teaching. Matter of fact, when I got the administrator's job, I told the superintendent I will not accept this job unless I can teach at least 1 class. And it doesn't have to be the best. I'll teach anything from 7th grade general math all the way up. I got a smile on my face because of the fact that my wife had a travel business at that time. And one of the trips, we used to go to Montreal every year. And one of the trips to Montreal, we went to a nightclub show. And there was a female impersonator that came out. He was supposed to be Tammy Wynette, the singer. And he had on this big boa. And we're sitting right next to the stage. And one of the feathers floated off the boa right next. So I picked it up and I stuck it in my pocket. I didn't think anything of it. So when I taught that 1 class at the high school, a lot of these teachers never left chalk, and then you used chalk on the chalkboard. You didn't have overheads and all that stuff. So I always carried chalk in my pocket. So I get down to the room, I go into my pants pocket to pull out a piece of chalk, and what comes out? That big feather floats to the ground. That class looked at me, hey, Mr. Donald, what have you been doing? Laughed. Embarrassed. Oh, was I embarrassed. Only one of them at the time I was embarrassed. I rushed off to school, and I taught because I always had the first class, because I wanted the rest of the day to do my administration. I called up Betty. I said, Betty, I forgot my wallet. So I forgot something. I forgot my wallet. So she drove up, and I went to the front door of the main office. I went outside. She opens up the door to give me my wallet, and she says, you didn't teach your first class like that, did you? I said, what do you mean? Your fly is wide open. Oh, Jesus. I said, yeah, I thought they were kind of looking at me funny. Laugh. Oh, that was funny. It was funny then, it wasn't. But anyways, I had some wonderful students. I really can't say, outside of the exception of one student, I never had a bad kid. And I never raised my voice, never. And that's, people say, yeah, you did. No, I never did. I never raised my voice. What I would do if I got upset, I would just stop talking. And you stop talking for a few minutes, the kids would say, he's not saying anything. What's wrong? He's not saying anything. Then I would start up again. I didn't get as much money as I could have, I know. But when you go to work and you enjoy going to work every day, and every day was different. I mean, you know what you're going to do, basically. You got plans. But I really, really enjoyed teaching. When I lost Betty, I was not in a very happy frame of mind, obviously, and then my son decided to go back east. So lo and behold, hunting around, we found this mobile home park in Temecula, and I lived there for a couple years. When I first moved here, the mobile home park has a monthly magazine, and I saw about they have prayer group meetings on Wednesdays. I said, well, let me go there. So I joined the prayer group, and Mary Jane and her husband at that time, Cliff, were members of the prayer group. And as a matter of fact, if I recall, Mary Jane ran the prayer group. We became friends, and then Cliff got sick and Cliff died. And then I moved back to Connecticut and New Hampshire, I guess, first of all. But I still couldn't find myself. I was going back and forth, just trying to find things to do to keep my mind occupied. I was going to Mass at the chapel in the wine country on a Sunday, and lo and behold, Mary Jane was there. And we got talking afterwards, and that's how we really met and started going out together. And I said, to this day, I swear to God, that God put us together. Mary Jane is a very unique person. And I tell her this, and she gets a big kick out of it. I refer to Mary Jane as the saint of Heritage Park. She is probably one of the most caring people I've ever met in my life. People have told me about her, what she's done for people. Just a loving, caring person, not only to me. She watches me like a hawk to make sure that I'm all right. She keeps me in line in a nice way, not in a bad way. I wouldn't be here without her. I wouldn't be alive without her. Mary Jane and I went out for a while socially. I did propose to her. I remember I got down on my knee. Mary Jane has 7 daughters. I never thought I'd learn all their names, but I have. Karen and Ruth and Dory and Janie and Mardell and June and Carolyn. I can imagine her daughters must have thought she was nuts, and I'm sure she had a lot of counseling with them, and hopefully after they met me, I think they've changed their minds by now. We wanted to get married because we were both lonely people, and we were very, very friendly. And I said, what the hell, we're 75 years old, let's give it a shot and see what happens, you know? Well, we did get married. Then the next year we flew to Hawaii, and then we were on a ship around the islands. So we were officially, that was, I think, was our honeymoon, which was wonderful. The marriage grew, it's been growing, and it's still growing. And I hope it will be for a long, long time. And the love is solid. And it's like the Rock of Gibraltar. And it's never going to change. Mary Kate, my daughter-in-law, have a beautiful mother. I've always admired the motherness in her. I know Betty did too. And the most fondest memory I have of Mary Kate is that she was always there for us, no matter what it was. When I lived in Tucson and they lived there, Mary Kate lived there, I got sick and boy, she had me at that hospital within 5 minutes. She always was very, very cognizant of my health, and I really remember how wonderful she was when Betty got sick. And she really became not only a beautiful daughter-in-law, but most certainly a caregiver for Betty. Mary Kate knew that I couldn't handle, some of the things, and she would take care. She would wash Betty. She'd take her to the bathroom. She was there for every minute that Betty needed her, and I never forget that her. And I would never worry that Betty wasn't in good hands with Mary Kate, and she's just a lovely person. I stay in contact with her now. She stays in contact with me, and hopefully it will always be that way. I love her just as I love my own children, and I know that will never change. My son-in-law, Rich, I've always been amazed, even when I first met him, that when he was young, when he just got out of the service, that he is so comfortable in the presence of older people. He just seemed to melt right into people. Usually young people, when they're talking to older people or they're around older people, they're either a little shy or they don't say too much, and I don't know whether you call it respect, whatever it is. But he seemed to go right in there, and he was always very comfortable. Possibly that's why he's in the job that he is now as a blackjack dealer at one of the most famous hotels, casinos in the world in Las Vegas, the Wynn. He's a people person. He's been a good father, and he's been a very good father to his grandchildren. And God bless him for that. I love animals. I always have loved animals. And I love golden retrievers, probably because they're such a loving, caring, sweet, kind, gentle animal. You could almost call them gentle giants, because they were a big dog. And I made it big because I always spoil them. They're all, my golden retrievers are always overweight, guaranteed. And I've had 6 of them. And it's very hard to pick out my favorite one. Most certainly, Yulia, my last one, is probably my second most favorite one, because she's the one that probably kept me alive. She kept me going when I had nothing. But if it came down to it, you gotta only pick one as your most favorite. It would probably be the one that looked the least like any of the others. And the one that looked the least like any of the others was Ginger, because of her redness. But she's such a kind and so gentle and so, I guess, kind of a lost dog. That's probably why I love her the best, because I was lost. I just love that sweet girl. I have 6 grandchildren, and I have 2 great-grandchildren. I have 1 grandson, 5 granddaughters, and I have 2 great-grandsons. And each one of them is unique in their own way. Each one has some wonderful attributes. As far as an old guy like me passing on wisdom, stay happy and stay healthy and believe in God. When things get tough, just ride the waves, seek help from our Lord, and I'm sure that in the long run, He's going to be there for you. And I'm not trying to be religious, but I firmly believe that God has a plan for each one of us, for each one of my grandchildren and great-grandchildren. I know you're going to be successful. I have no doubt about that. I have one sadness a little bit that they're growing up into a world that is not a happy place right now. Matter of fact, one of the prayers I say each day is for peace in the world, particularly in America, to get rid of this hatred that seems to be permeating this land. But I'm very proud of my grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and God bless them healthy for a long, long time. I know I've been talking for quite a while now and telling some stories, and they are more than stories, they are my life. A picture of my life over the last 86 years. And people say, well, you must have some pearls of wisdom after all these years. You have to leave something for us to ponder. And I guess live your life to its fullest. Do what you can to keep yourself happy and safe. Love your children and treat every day as if it's the best day of your life. Most certainly pray to God. Pray, I don't care how you pray. Some people pray by saying formal prayers. I say prayers formally, and I say by just talking. I think that if you keep a relationship with our Creator, I just think you will be a much fuller person. But happiness and health is what I wish all of you, and I thank you for putting up with my stories. And I know I probably beat them to death a few times. Some of you have heard it more than once. But I've enjoyed my life, and I'm looking forward to my next life. Thank you.
That's about it, guys. Signing off.